Hey, good morning everybody. It's Griff coming from the Hookup Tackle. So I want to take a couple minutes to sit with you and talk about one of the techniques that I really love to fish, and that is the spoon.
Welcome to the Hookup Tackle. The Hookup Tackle is the world's largest showcase of Megabass products, featuring baits and colors not found at any other dealer. The Hookup also offers a wide display of OSP, Evergreen, Deps, Lucky Craft, Jackal, and many more. The Hookup Tackle is owned and operated by family, is staffed by guides and verified tackle nerds who love helping anglers elevate their craft. If you're in the Phoenix area, we'd love to have you stop by our showroom and check out the wonderful world of Megabass and the Hookup for yourself. If you shop online, there are almost 10,000 SKUs of Megabass products alone, with hundreds of other companies and new products being added daily. So next time you're looking for that hard to find bait, that color your fish have never seen before, or maybe you just want to elevate your game, look at thehookuptackle.com.
Well, let's just get started with this spoon.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna start here with the Flutter Spoon. This is one of my favorite spoons to throw. Right now, you have the Ben Parker spoon here in an 8-inch. They make multiple sizes: the 7, the 9. I think the 8-inch is the most universal size there is out there. It is your typical Flutter spoon. So the thing that I really love to do with these is just sink them to the bottom and then just lift and drop. That's all I'm gonna do. I like to drive around the lake and use the graph, and we'll find some fish when they're schooling, and you can see that they're actively chasing bait. That means we have the chance to drop a spoon on them. So I'll take my big Flutter Spoon is where I'm gonna start. I'm gonna drop it to no matter where they're at. So if they're sitting at 80 feet, I'm dropping it to 80 feet. If they're sitting at 40 feet, I'm gonna drop it to 40 feet. So I'm gonna use a spoon whenever I see like a lot of fish schooling. I know that in a lot of places in the US, the spoon is a good ledge fishing technique, but it's just not something that we have here. So I'm gonna do a lot of spooning in schools of bass that are chasing fish, and I can see them on my graph. It's a super simple technique. All you're gonna do with the Flutter Spoon is you're gonna drop it down to where they are. You're gonna lift your rod tip up, and with semi-slack line, you're gonna lead it back down. You're gonna crank it up a little bit, and you're just gonna do that all the way through the water column. Somewhere in there, from the bottom until probably mid-range, you're gonna get struck if they're gonna eat it. The Flutter Spoon is a good one to use. When you drop it in there, it has this giant flutter. It just goes like this. Sometimes it spins because it's sitting on a swivel, but it's gonna go down there. It's gonna make a lot of flash. It's gonna push a lot of water, and it's gonna thump. The Ben Parker spoon is the one that I use the most, but there are other options out there. Deps makes the Gurkhaknife. We have the Gurkhaknife in 2 sizes. The smaller one is the one that I use the most. A lot of guys love to use this big one, but it's heavy, and I don't like to throw it as much, but it does catch bigger fish. So another option is going to be this Imakatsu Big Beller. Same concept, it just has these extra blades on there. The blades are just going to create extra flash, going to look like smaller fish mixed in with this dead dying fish that's floating to the bottom. Definitely attracts fish. I've caught some of my bigger fish here on this one. And then you can even go to like super small Flutter Spoons, which are going to be these Nichols small spoons. The 4-inchers, they work really well. You're going to catch a ton of different species of fish on these smaller ones. So for us, the white bass love to eat them. That's probably what it catches the most on it. You're going to be able to catch all the different sizes of largemouth bass, and of course the stripers will eat it really, really well. When I'm fishing the spoon and I'm using the Flutter Spoon and I'm not really getting bit, I feel like I need to move to throw something a little bit faster, so I'm gonna go with like a jigging casting style spoon. And my first choice is gonna be with the Metal X Waving Rider, which is a typical casting spoon. You're gonna cast it. It's gonna cast a far, long way, and you're gonna be able to work it through the column. So you can do it many different ways. When you're fishing it, you just cast it out there. You can just crank it in as fast as you can. It's gonna have a swimming motion to it. So if they're schooling near the top of the column, boiling or anything like that, you cast it out there and you rip it right through one of those schools, and you're more than likely gonna get hit. If they're schooling down low, Just gonna cast it out there, sink it to the bottom, give it some twitches as you're reeling it, and it's gonna give it a really sporadic action, but it's still gonna have that scurrying, dying bait fish look to it. Just rip it through. This bait right here comes in a few really nice colors, pretty realistic. Definitely made for the saltwater, but the largemouth bass, they love it. They'll eat it, they'll kill it. It looks like a dying fish. It's perfect size, but it's heavy. So we have different size options in it, in a 30 and the 40 gram. So they're both gonna weigh around that 1 ounce, 1.5 ounce range. They're gonna cast far. You can do a ton of different things with it, and it's a great effective tool to use when you're out there spooning. If I need to go smaller, I'm gonna throw the Realis drag metal shot. So if I feel like that I need to downsize, I'm gonna go to the Realis drag metal cast or the drag metal cast shot. Both of these are very similar in size, and they're gonna range in the 15 to 40 gram also. The shot has a blade on the end of it, so it's gonna just add that little bit of extra flash, look like another fish maybe, but this one's gonna be fished very similar. You're gonna cast it out, you're gonna crank it in, you're gonna jerk it like a jerk bait, you're gonna let it sink, you can rip it up and just let it float to the bottom. There's so many different things that you can do with these smaller jigs. If you're graphing and you see a huge school just directly below you, you can just drop it down, rip it up, let it fall, rip it up, let it fall. And all it's gonna do is present itself as either a fleeing bait fish or a dying bait fish, because it's gonna fall with a flutter, it's gonna fall with a little bit of motion to it, and then when you're cranking it in, it's gonna have a swimming motion. But definitely check out these smaller spoons. They're super effective. You can probably go out there in one of our local lakes, and when the white bass are schooling really hard, we can catch a ton of them on these right here.
So you have that Big Beller over there, and
Yes.
you've got the Magnum spoon. I see that one's got a more realistic paint, the other one's kind of just very flashy. Do you think flash makes a big difference in your ability to catch fish, or does it not really matter, it's all about action?
I think with the spoon, the flash is very important. I think, the spoon is metal and shiny for a reason, especially when it's down in the depths where visibility's not as great. You throw these spoons down there. The Beller is actually just shiny metal on the inside, so it's gonna give them like a quick flash of a bait fish if they're super keyed in, like the shad pattern of this is a school of fish on there instead of just one pattern. But they also have, these spoons have colors on them. They're painted, you get your sexy shad color, you get your blueback herring colors, so they're gonna add color to most of the spoons. Or sometimes you just need just a standard gold or silver one. That flash is gonna make the biggest difference in my opinion. They're gonna see it, they're gonna feel it, because it's gonna thump and it's gonna push water really hard. There's gonna be a lot of vibration with this, and they're either gonna be super hungry or they're gonna hate it, but they're just gonna want it dead.
Do you make modifications to some of these spoons? So that spoon in your hand, it's a Magnum spoon. It's a massive lure, and it's got just a small little hook on it. Do you hook a lot of fish, or do you add extra hooks, bigger hooks?
So 100% of the time, I'm gonna add a stinger hook to the spoon. I'm just gonna hook it onto this split ring that they have that it comes with. A lot of people like to put the stinger hook on the line, or some people will add a treble hook to the line, and that'll give you a way to, if they bite the front of it, you can hook them, and you're not really using the weight of the spoon as leverage to come off, and they can just slide up and down the line. But I feel like the spoon, when you're reeling it in, you're reeling it in pretty quick, and you're not really giving them a chance to use the leverage, especially with one of these stinger hooks. It's on a rope, so it's gonna twist, it's gonna spin, it's gonna move a lot, but the pressure's gonna stay.
So you feel like your hookup ratio is better with that overall?
Yeah, when I'm hooking them on the stinger, it's almost at 100%. I don't lose many fish. When they hit the back and I get them on the treble, I definitely lose more fish. Every once in a while, I'll actually add a swivel to the bottom portion of this too, and that'll just give me a little bit more of an advantage on there. But 9 times out of 10, I'm just gonna add the stinger, and then I'm gonna fish it as is.
So when you're working a spoon down there and you get bit and the fish misses it, what do you do after that? Do you reel it all the way back up, or do you drop it, or do you kind of keep doing the same retrieve?
If I'm getting bit, I know that I'm in a school of fish. So if I get bit and I miss, I'm just gonna click my reel and I'm gonna send it right back down, and I'm gonna just go through the process. It's not a very quick process fishing the spoon. That spoon's gonna be in the water for minutes at a time while you're working it. I work it, I bring it up, work it, drop it back down, work it until I get the bite that I'm looking for, and then when I actually hook up to a fish, and then I just reel it in. It's a fun way for me to fish because it's a giant heavy bait, and it just, mentally you're not even really too sure. It's a chunk of metal.
Yeah.
And why is a fish eating the chunk of metal?
It's crazy.
But it's super effective. I mean, they eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't deny the power of the spoon, especially like midsummer to mid-fall. Like when they're eating bait and they choose that, when they're deciding that they're going to eat something big, like the spoon is one of the best ways, especially if they're deep. If they're deep and you don't want to, throw something finesse and wait 6 hours for it to get to the bottom, that spoon, one of those big spoons, get to 100 feet in like 15 seconds, and then you just start working from there. And then when you need it to go faster, that's when these little spoons come into play, and they'll sink to the bottom super fast. So you'll be able to cover every depth range that's out there. You'll be able to cover the whole water column, every depth range, any kind of like motion that you want on there, there's a spoon for it. And also with the bigger spoons, they're so heavy, when you get caught on stuff, when 80 feet down, you're not going to send a lure retriever down there. They're very easy to get out because the weight of the lure actually gets it unhooked.
So it just pops itself off.
Yeah, if you wiggle it around a little bit, give it some slack line, and it 8 out of 10 times you're going to get it back. So you don't lose a ton of them. It's a weird situation because you don't lose a ton of them, but you need a ton of them. Because there will be a difference in that silver one or that silver one with a yellow stripe or maybe a little blue on there. Something different in that spoon is going to attract that fish.
So you mentioned on a semi-slack line. Why do you do this? Why not just let it slack line all the way down?
So you're going to keep it on that semi-slack line and guide it down, because if you're getting bit on the fall, you need to be able to feel it and react and get that hook set in there without snapping your line. Because no matter what line you're using, you got a 4 or 5 ounce bait on the end of it. You snap your line and it'll break. And then you always want to be able to feel that bite also, because there's the whole time you're fishing, there's going to be a ton of commotion at the end of your line. It's never just going to be up and down. You're going to feel thumps. You're going to feel movement. Like if you drop a spoon straight down, it may move 15 feet to the left or to the right as it's going down. So that's why I keep it on slack line. Some people might tell you differently. Like some people like it, keep it on taut line and guide it down, but like a little bit of slack to keep it in a horizontal position.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Typically, rod, people like to use the bigger, heavier rods, like a 7.2 to 7.6 heavy, with like a regular or like a mod fast action to it. So while you're when you're raising your rod, you're not. If you have a fast rod, it's just gonna pull the spoons like straight up. It's gonna raise it 15 feet, and then when you drop it, it's gonna have a lot more motion going down. But you want that little bit of bend on there so you can have a softer raise every time you raise it. And then it's got those big treble hooks on there, so you definitely want that bend in the rod while you're fighting the fish. 2 rods that I've been using a lot are the Steez 7.2 heavy. This one is very good for the casting spoons. I really like it with these spoons right here, because I'm casting them, and the weight range is real good for this rod right here. I can get a really long cast on there. I can get it to do pretty much what I want it to do, because the bend on this rod, the action on this rod is pretty. It's not super fast, but it's not slow. It's got a little bit of bend to it, so I can put a lot of action on those little spoons. And then my favorite just straight flutter spoon rod is going to be the Megabass P5 Killer Code. It's a small rod in looks, but it's a very powerful rod. It's not rated to 5 ounces, but if I'm vertically dropping, it's not as important as if I'm casting. This rod right here, it's a 6'6". It's really small, but it's one of the funnest rods to fish with when you got like a big bait on there. Especially like the Ben Parker Magnum, it's 4.7 ounces. And you'll definitely have a good time. But if you're just looking to catch fish, you should go with a bigger rod probably, just that has that right action to it. But this one, I mean, it has the perfect action for a spoon. It's gonna bend. It's gonna bend top quarter of the rod. You're gonna have a lot of control over that big spoon when it's deep, and super sensitive, which is kind of strange for a rod of this type. So you're gonna feel all those bites. You're gonna be able to get them in. It feels like a tiny rod, but it's really, really powerful, and I really like this one.
What's it rated to?
This rod it's a 6'6", rated 3/8 to 2 ounces, and then 8 to 22 pound on the line. And then, you know, another thing with spooning is that, you know, as you're spooning, you're gonna get worn out. Those big heavy spoons, and this one will definitely alleviate some of that wrist fatigue when you're doing it. I can't recommend this rod enough for the big spoon. It feels like I went down compared to the 7.2 heavy over here, but it's actually the better option for me. And then reels, you just want a reel that's going to have a lot of line capacity depending on how deep you're fishing, and then something in a high gear ratio so you can control that line as you're coming up, because once that fish gets on there, that line needs to go tight and you need to get it in. If you have any questions about the spoon, write it in the comments. We'll answer it as soon as we can. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.